The first question is, what is money? Money is the dividing line of society. You see it everywhere that you look and everywhere that you go, whether there's gates on a community or can't go in a certain area, can't get in a certain club, can't go to a certain restaurant. It's the dividing line of society. It's the only scorecard that anyone keeps track of. I mean, let's just look at the distribution of money around the world. And this was pulled online for 2023. Money's everywhere, right? Money is the only scorecard that people keep track of. And if you're not sure about that, think about when you first meet someone, what's the first question they ask you? They ask you, what do you do? Why? Because they're trying to size you up. They're trying to figure out, should I pay attention to this person? If you say, I'm a janitor, you may get one reaction. Whereas you say, I have a $300 million hedge fund that I just sold, you might get more attention. It's one of the first things people use to size you up. What kind of car do you drive? What kind of clothes do you wear? What kind of watch is on your arm? Who do you talk to? Where do you hang out? What are the things you do? Money is the scorecard that people keep track of in your life. It's one way to tell if you're winning in life. Now, for a minute, let's talk about the emotions of money. How does money make you feel? Because that's one of the key things we're going to talk about today, is getting a key understanding of you and money and how they interact together. How does it make you feel? Picture this. If I handed you $500 in cash, I put 5 crisp $100 bills in your hand. How do you feel? Pretty good, right? Not bad. I got some bills to pay. I got some things to do. Maybe I can go out tonight. I can have a good time. Now you're in the store and your debit card declines. How does that make you feel? Not good, right? Everybody's looking at you. The cashier's judging you. You thought you had enough money. Things aren't working out. Maybe life isn't going as well as you thought it should. But what does it mean to be wealthy? Now, the textbook definition is having a great deal of money, resources, or assets, being rich. Zane Engineers Life has a slightly different definition: to have the freedom to do what is important. See, the key is to find a way to disconnect your time from your money. You want it where you're making money while you sleep. And that's one of the things we want to talk about. So first off, why do we need money? Let's just assume you were a young engineer graduating and you were going to move to Atlanta for your first job. Well, how much does it cost to live in Atlanta? Well, you can go to a lot of different sites. Numbeo is a good one. Here's a link up at the top for you guys to check out. You can put in any city at any point. You can compare them back and forth. Like if you have an offer in New York and an offer in Chicago and an offer in Memphis, Tennessee, what's the difference in cost of living? Because it kind of matters. One may be more money, but one may cost twice as much to live. So let's just look. If we lived in Atlanta and we were a single person, if you go through the whole page here, it talks about groceries and gas and food and oranges and coffee and all those kinds of things. And if it totals it up for a very simple life, a single person might have $1,278 a month without rent. Now, that's the killer right now, right? Is rent. It's impossible to find anywhere to live without having 17 roommates. A 3-bedroom outside of main Atlanta can be $2,400 a month. That's a lot of money. Well, let's just take our 1278 and our 1871 and let's just say it costs us about $3,000 a month to live, right? Well, how much money do I then need to be able to live? Well, let's look at that for a second. Pull up our old trusty calculator. $3,000 a month times 12 months, and that's after tax. So I now need to divide that by 0.75 to figure out how much money do I have to make a year to have $3,000 a month left over after taxes. That's $48K. That's a pretty good amount of money to live as a single person. Now, you just graduated school, so hopefully we're going to be in a little bit better shape than that as a young engineer. Well, let's figure out what our income can be. If we go to ZipRecruiter, the average entry-level engineer salary in Atlanta is about $67,000 a year. Okay, that's cool. That means maybe we can live a little better than a single person. But let's actually break it down a little bit. We have 67 grand a year. How much do we actually get to keep? Now you're going to see in a minute, we're going to have an example where we've gotten a job where they have some 401k matching. So we're going to pull out a little money for that. I've used Smart Asset site. It's pretty good. You can pull up the state and the location and all these kind of things and see what your actual taxes are. Now we have a federal marginal tax rate of 22%, and that means not all of it's taxed at 22%, but some of it, and it gradually goes up. The more money you make, the higher amount of tax that amount of money gets taxed, right? We have our old friend FICA, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all those kind of things, which you pay half, and I don't know if you know this, but your employer pays the other half. So you actually cost another 7.65% immediately off the top for any employer. So anytime you're going in hammering for a raise, you're already getting 8% more than you're actually being paid. And in reality, it's a little more than that with other insurances and other costs for the employer. But there's FICA, you're half of FICA. If you're self-employed, you pay both halves. So that's the key of being 1099 versus an employee. In the state of Georgia, there's a 5.7% marginal tax rate. And if I total all those up, so we have $67,800 a year. And what do we get to take home? Well, all of our taxes added up between federal, FICA, state, and local, $14,623. A effective tax rate overall of 21.66%. We only get to take home $49,000. We are saving some money, you'll see in our 401k, but a big chunk goes right off the top, right? People don't talk about FICA tax. They don't talk about state tax and all the other things that come into how much money you actually get to take home after you get your paycheck. All right, so we've got our 49 grand. Let's start to build a monthly budget. Okay, so we took our 67.8 and divided by 12. We make about $56.50 a month. We have an employer who says they'll match half of up to 5% of whatever we put in our 401k. So we're going to go ahead and do that because it's like getting a 2.5% raise. There's a little trick to it here in a second, though. So we're going to put in 5% in our 401k. That's going to come right off the top to now figure out our taxable income. You don't get taxed on money you put in your 401k until you withdraw it when you're older. So our taxable income's a little lower, but our tax rate is still that 21.6. I'll call it 22%. And we've got to pay for our share of health insurance. A lot of employers only pay a portion of that, so let's include it. So our actual take-home pay from making $67,800 a year is $37,1350 a month. Now to go back, like my company, we match 100% of the first 5%, and we make you immediately vested. That's one thing to look for in offers with a company. What is the vesting schedule? Do you get it immediately, or do you have to stay there for 5 years? Because very few people stay in their first job for 5 years. So if you're counting on that extra matching and they have a really long vesting schedule, you need to seriously make sure it's a company you really want to be with. All right, so let's look at our expenses, and we pulled them over. We have an $1,800 a month apartment with rent and etc. A not really good phone and internet plan. We're eating on $25 a day, which means we can go to Chick-fil-A like half a time, maybe 3/4 of a time a day, right? Our car insurance and our car insurance total up to $500, and we've got those pesky student loans. So on average, an average young engineer graduating school, moving to Atlanta, making $67,800 a year, they're taking home $3,700, and it's going to cost them $35.76 a month to live, minimum. So their net take home is $137.50 a month. They put nothing into their investment account, nothing into their savings, and they have 5% of their money going into retirement with a 2.5 match. But in the particular of this company, they don't vest for 5 years, so basically it's worthless. All right, so after 1 year, what's the score? Now, if we take our budget that we just looked at and we call that our profit and loss statement, our income and our expenses, then the most important score sheet for us is our balance sheet, which is our assets minus our liabilities, and that will equal our net worth. What is our net worth after 1 year? Well, if we saved every single cent of that $137.50, we have $1,650 in our checking account. We have nothing in our savings, nothing in our investment account. We do have $3,300 in our 401k that we get to use when we're 100,000 years old if the world hasn't ended by then. And we have our sweet 2021 Honda Civic that's worth about $16,985. So our total assets, our total worth on the asset column is $22K. Let's look at our liabilities. On average, we've got $22,000 in student debt. We owe 18 grand on that sweet Honda Civic, and we have at least $3,250 of credit card debt, totaling out all of our liabilities to $43,250. So our net worth is our assets minus our liabilities. After 1 year of working at our first job, fresh out of school, living in Atlanta, making $67,800 a year, we are worth negative $21,225. How does that make you feel? You worked a whole year, and if nothing went wrong, no emergencies, no new brakes, you didn't get sick, nothing broke, no relative needed help, you didn't go on vacation, you didn't take a trip, you didn't have a hobby, you ate cheap food, you lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and you had a sweet Honda Civic. And your net each month is $137.50. And your net worth after 1 year is minus $21,225. How long would it take us to have a positive net worth? $21,225 divided by $137.50 is 154 months. 12.86 years at working that job in that location with no expenses going up, no raises in pay, and nothing going wrong for 12 years, we would be worth $0.00. Now, the question I ask you, is this what you wanted out of life? But Zane, how do we get out? How do we not do this? How do we not work the rest of our lives and have nothing or be worth a negative amount of money? How do we get out? What's keeping us broke? What's in our way? What happens when we don't have enough money to be the person we want to be? What do we do to get out? Well, the first thing we do is we learn how to get out. So hit the books. See, education is the only thing that they can never take away. Doesn't matter what happens to you, you can never unlearn what you learned. If you learn something, it goes with you forever. So it's a great initial investment in the first part of your career. Here is a great book for you to start with. And it's a whopping $6.97 on Amazon right now. So it's not like you can't afford it. Maybe you can get a free trial on Kindle or something. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And this is a really cool classic book, super quick read. You can read it in a weekend, nothing to it. Great stories. And there's 3 really main things that I pulled out of this book. The first, and it is the most important thing, if you hear nothing else today, pay yourself first. It is the only way out. 10% of all you make should be yours to keep. Now, I'm going to push you to do even more than that, but at least 10% of every dollar that comes in. You make $100, $10 should go in your investment account. It's got to happen. It's the only way out of this rat race. Second big point from this book, put your money to work. Your investment fund is only there to make money. Now, here's a problem that I see. Young engineer comes out, makes a little bit of money, puts it in their savings account. Suddenly they got $1,200 in there because everything's going right. And what do? They go blow it on something. They go spend something. They take a trip out of town. They go somewhere. Now, here's the thing. That needs to be invested in your future. Now, there's a couple ways to do that. You might could make a course for yourself. You might could learn something. You might take an education class. But what you don't want to do is buy a bunch of crap, because crap doesn't make you additional money. Investments do. You want that $1,200 making more money while you sleep. Remember what we talked about a minute ago? You've got to divorce your time from your money. It is the most important concept in this entire discussion. Pay yourself first, put your money to work. Now, to do that, you've got to live within your means. Your investment fund must come first, your savings second, your debt payoff third. You've got to find a way to live on 70% or less of your take-home pay. But Zane, that's going to be impossible. Well, what's going to be impossible is not doing it, because then you have a miserable life forever. So you put a little bit of work in for a really, really long time, or put a lot of work in for a really, really short time and enjoy the rest of your life. Let's keep going. Hit the books. Here's another great one. This is the one that introduced me and got me on the path of being an investor instead of a worker bee. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a whopping $6.82 on Kindle right now. Some really cool things that come out of this book. It's a great read. Sit down and do it, and then you're really going to see what I'm talking about. Your house is not an asset. Your car is not an asset. In this book, Kiyosaki talks about assets are things that make you money. You have any examples? My business is one. Investment accounts, stocks, bonds, all those kinds of things are things that you own that make you money. Maybe you own the recording rights for your favorite band. Did you know you can actually buy those online? Pretty cool. Now, debt is for things is bad. Debt for things is bad. Cars, credit cards, store credit, buying junk, the latest set of sneakers, a new guitar, all these things that you don't necessarily need when you start your journey. Debt for things is bad. Debt for assets is good. If you're buying a fourplex, if you're going in together and buying an investment property, or if you're getting a business loan that you can make more money than it cost you to get the loan. Your house is not an asset. Your car is not an asset. Assets make you money. Debt for things is bad. Debt for assets is good. These are the principles of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Out of that book, there's a really cool diagram. A minute ago, we were talking about a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet, or an income and expense statement and a balance sheet. I just showed you yours if you're just graduating and moving to Atlanta, right? This was your income and your expenses, your assets and your liabilities. So let's look at how this works and why the rich get richer. For the middle class, you have a job and a salary. You then pay all your expenses like taxes and mortgage and car loans and credit loans and school loans and all the other bills that you have. You have a ton of liabilities on your balance sheet, mortgages and cars and student loans and credit cards, but you don't have a lot of assets. So your money comes in and goes right back out to pay debt and pay expenses with nothing left. Whereas the rich have income from sources that are not their job. Rental income, dividends, interest, royalties. Their expenses are some of the same, taxes and mortgage, but they don't have car loans and credit cards and student loans. They don't have to pay expenses on those debts. Their debts that they own are their assets, like their real estate, the mortgage that they might give to you, the loan that they might give to you, owning stocks and bonds and notes and intellectual property. Their liabilities are the mortgage that might be on the asset that they own. Consumer loans and credit cards, which they can afford because they have money constantly coming in and making more money for them. Their time is not tied to their money. They might have a job, but that job's sole purpose is to make enough money to buy assets, and that's what you're looking for. Now, here's an idea talking about that very thing. If you work a job, you get paid your salary, you immediately pay taxes, and then what is left is what you get to take home. Then you pay your bills, and whatever you have left is for you, right? So let's look at our phone and internet payment, our car and insurance payment, and some of our food. If we owned a company, we could write those expenses off before we pay our taxes. So let's look at it again. When you work a job, you get a salary, you get taxed, you take your money home, pay your bills, you get what's left. When you own a company, you get income in your company, you subtract all of your costs, what's left is your profit. It is then taxed, and then you get your distribution. Taxes come last. So let's just look at a real simple example. If my company just happens to pay for my phone and internet, and they absolutely require me to have a car and insurance on it, and they buy my lunch so I can continue working instead of leaving and coming back, that's about $900 a month right there, pre-tax. At a 22% tax rate savings, by having that run through my company, I could save $198 a month in savings. See, this is why movie stars work for a company who is then hired to have them do the movie. That way they can write off their hair and their coaching and their training and their eating and all their other expenses that go along with creating the image that they play in the movie. They never work directly for the movie, they work through their company. That way they can write off their expenses. Same thing with you. Find a way to create a company so that some of your expenses can be legally and per the tax code written off. Things like your home internet or your car or your phone or meeting with customers or meeting with clients or meals so that you can continue working. There's a lot of different costs within a company that come long before taxes, so that you have your income minus your cost equal your profit, then taxed. Whereas if you work a job, you make your money, get taxed immediately on the full amount, and then use what's left to pay your bills. A very key concept for breaking the chain and getting out of the rat race. Now let's go back. We suggested you live on 70% of your income, but in reality, to get started, if you're a young, single engineer with no family, no responsibilities, no requirements, here's a really strong suggestion for how you first start. Your 100% of money that comes in after taxes, 15% immediately put in your investment account. Have it drawn out, have it direct deposited, put it in an account you cannot get to, dump it into Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or one of these online trading platforms that'll give you a free account. They're super easy to set up on your phone. You can set up the auto draft right out of your checking account. 15% of what you take home needs to go immediately to that. You've got to find a way to live on less than half of what you make. But Zane, that's impossible. Yeah, I get it. But you're going to have to find a way. Because the more money you can put in earlier, the faster you can get those money soldiers working for you and fighting your battles so that you don't have to work for every dollar that you make. You can use your brain and invest. You got to find a way to live on less. But Zane, it's impossible. Expenses are too high. Got to find a way. I didn't say it was going to be easy. I didn't say everybody's going to be able to do it, but we got to find a way. The more money we have to invest, the less money we waste, the faster we can get out and do what we want to do. Remember, it's the freedom to be able to do what you want to do. That is true wealth. Now let's look at these other four: networking, learning, traveling, and God and helping others. Now, networking can be as simple as going out to eat with friends, but make sure those friends are someone that can help you build your company and build your future. You're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most. So I want you to take a quick inventory. Who are the 5 people you hang out with the most? Are they who you want to be? If they're not, you need to start changing them out. But Zane, I don't want to abandon my friends. Well, if your friends are keeping you from getting to your dreams, then they're not truly your friends. See, if they love and understand you, they'll be quite happy to see you do better. Now, that's going to come up a lot when you first start your career, right? All these people that hung out with you and you didn't have money, and now you're making money and they start making comments, get away from them immediately. They're poison. Okay? So networking, spend money going to events, going to trade shows, going to things. You can actually put learning and networking together and go to a trade show in Vegas where you learn a whole bunch of new things and new skills that you can then go to your employer to get a raise for. So you can combine these, right? Network, learn, and travel. Put 30% of your income a year into going to 2 major events where you get a certification and you learn how to do something. AISC convention or something like that. You can go to one of the fab conventions here in Atlanta. You can go to Design Depart. You can go to a lot of different conferences where you can learn and meet and network with people who might want to hire you at a higher salary. And then importantly, just like I am today working in the office on a Sunday, trying to put this together for you guys, helping others. 10% of your time should be, whether you're religious or not, to helping other people do better. Find a way to volunteer, find a way to put some money into that, help a single mom, Meals on Wheels, something, right? It's got to be something you can do to help others. So, Zane Engineers Life suggestion for a young engineer with no family, no responsibilities. We're going to take 15% of our income, we're going to invest it immediately. It is money for making more money and nothing else. Not for spending on a car, not for a trip, not for anything else. Because we have 40% that we're going to use for networking, learning, traveling, and helping others. Within that, we can cover most of our hobbies, meeting new people, expanding our abilities, getting new certifications, getting new training, and learning how to do stuff. Then we find a way to live on less than half of what's left. We've got this. Now, for the investment side of it, here's a few suggestions. Your 401k, you should put in whatever the match amount is. That's free money. Even if it's vesting in the future, at least it'll force you to save. The big thing is pay yourself first. The rest of whatever, if you put 5% in your 401k, another 10% immediately needs to go into an investment account like Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, one of those. And within that, find a tax-free municipal fund. It's really cool. That way you don't have to pay state or federal taxes on it. There's another 5.7% savings in the state of Georgia if you use a Georgia State Municipal Fund. Auto draft to a mutual fund that's usually in a stock index or S&P 500 or something like that. Pull your credit report every 14 months to make sure someone's not sneaking debt or other things in on your credit. And then I suggest strongly that you find a way to start a business. Hey Zane, show it to me in practice. Okay, well here's an example profit, loss, or income and expense and balance sheet. I've put it together for someone with a slightly different income. I think this was $60K a year and slightly different expenses. So let's just walk through it. In, we have $5,000 and our employer matching that we get. Out, we have our 401k. Our 401k match goes with that. Our investment fund, we're paying ourselves first. We're paying our taxes, our rent, our phone and internet. We have food. We're living cheap and inexpensively. We're going to Chipotle and we're eating on coupons. We have car, health, and car insurance. We have our pesky student loan, and then we're repaying our credit card. And then we're going to spend $49 a month to travel and help to round out our $5,000. Now let's look at what happens at the end of each month. We have $5,000 in. We have $10.45 out for taxes. That was our 21 to 22%. We're left with $39.55. And how do we spend it? Well, in the green categories, we save, invested, and paid debt. So 27% of our income went for investments, savings, and paying debt. Great. We lived on 68% of our income. Not great. We'd like to be at 45, but it's almost impossible when you first get started, right? And then networking. We called our phone and internet networking because we spend time online on forums and business forums and talking to people in our career and our trade, sending LinkedIn messages and connecting to people. So we're going to count that into our networking. We put 3.8% there and we helped others at 1.2%. But Zane, how do I get to the point that I can be at those percentages you showed a minute ago? They're almost impossible. Well, they're targets. They're what you're going to improve upon and get toward. The big thing is you're going to have to make more money because you can't borrow your way out of debt. You're going to have to find a way to make more money, and the only way to do that is to invest in yourself, to get your skills better, to network with more people, and to find people who want you at a higher rate and give you opportunities to own parts of the business. Okay? All right, let's go back to our example. So we spend our $39.55, 27% for investing, 68% for living, 4% for networking, and 1% helping others. That was all we could do at the moment. Let's look at our assets. We started with $100 and we ended with $100 in our checking account. We invested in our investment account and we put $600 in there. We had our 401k savings, which went in, and our matching over to the side. And then we paid down part of our car, not much, but we're getting there. Let's look at our liabilities. Our car was an asset, but now it's worth a little bit less. So now let's look at our liabilities. We have our student loan that we've paid down some, our car that we've paid down some, and our credit card that we've paid down some. So we've actually made an $11,000 improvement in our situation from last year. Now, if we keep doing that and we keep pushing that hard, we can improve quickly. Again, the important point is we're going to have to make more money. But Zane, how am I going to do that? You're going to invest in yourself. See, that investment fund, when you first put it in there, some of that initial money needs to go to getting yourself more skills, learning things, getting courses, going to training, etc. It's cool to buy a mutual fund that's paying you 3 or 4%, but your first $1,000 or $2,000 that's in your investment account, I would invest in yourself, in a business, and starting something and learning something and going to networking and going to an event. You can combine a lot of those things that we talked about into finding a way to make more money. That's the key. First one is pay yourself first. Second one is investing that money so that it makes it while you don't have to work. And third is making more connections, making more business opportunities, and making more money. That's the only way out of this rat race. So again, open Excel and get to work. Put your income and expenses, your assets and liabilities, set it up where you can pull your expenses in once a month and see where you are. Get a spending tracking app on your phone. Mint, there's a bunch of different ones that you can pull down, learn how to use it and learn how to incorporate it, where you can download the data and review it on a monthly basis. Write everything down you do for 3 weeks. The money you spend, the time you spend, the people you spend it with, and what you get out of it, and how it makes you feel. You want to see what's actually going on. Every 15 minutes, just make a quick note in your phone where I'm at. Speech to text works, just do it. Once you have 3 weeks of data, sit down and go, did I spend my time where I thought I should and I got the most back for it? Did I spend my money where I thought I should and did I get the most back for it? So you want return on investment on your most important resource, which is your time, and your second most important, which is your money. You've got to make a plan to get out of this. Now, to wrap it up, pay yourself first. That's basically it. That's how you get this started. Send me questions and comments, post them here on YouTube, like and subscribe, help me get the word out. We've got to help more people. I'm Zane with Zane Engineers Life, and we'll make you better.